You don't have bad social skills. You leak information like a cracked vault. Predators don't force confessions. They let you talk, then weaponize every word. You think you're just talking. That's why you lose. Conversation is not a social activity. It's a transaction, and the currency is information. Every word you give away is a unit of leverage someone else can spend against you later. This is the Machiavellian lens. Speech is exposure. Silence is armor. Most men enter conversations like civilians walking into a war zone holding a neon sign. They volunteer opinions, justify themselves, confess weakness, and call it being real. Then they're shocked when people start steering them, using them, cornering them. You weren't being authentic. You were being harvestable. Here's the uncomfortable rule. Whoever controls the topic controls the power, and whoever controls the power controls what gets extracted. When someone asks you a simple question, don't assume innocence. Questions are scalpels. They're designed to open you up with minimal resistance. The person doesn't need to be evil for this to be true. Humans are naturally opportunistic. Even decent people unconsciously collect data to rank you, predict you, and manage you. That's what social intelligence really is, profiling. So we reframe the room. A friend group is a miniature court. A date is a negotiation table. A workplace chat is a battlefield with smiling faces. A family dinner is an interrogation disguised as tradition. In every one of these places, your position is being tested, not with fists, through framing, questions, jokes, and pauses. And your biggest mistake is thinking the goal is connection. No, the goal is advantage. Because the moment you reveal what you fear, what you want, what you can't tolerate, what you're insecure about, someone can steer you with it. They can bait you, pressure you, shame you, or bribe you. They can make you react instead of decide. That's the definition of being controlled. Your behavior becomes predictable. So the first psychological shift is brutal. Stop treating conversation as bonding. Start treating it as reconnaissance. You don't enter a room to be understood. You enter to observe. Who asks questions and who answers them, who tells stories and who validates them, who jokes at whose expense, who interrupts and who apologizes, who stays calm, and who over-explains. That's the hierarchy map. And here's the Machiavellian inversion most men resist. Good communication is often a trap. Open up. Be vulnerable. Tell me how you feel. Just be honest. Sometimes it's intimacy. Often it's extraction. Because honesty without discretion is not virtue. It's self-disclosure to the wrong audience. In power terms, it's leaving your weapon on the table and hoping nobody picks it up. They will pick it up. Not always maliciously, but always usefully. So in this lens shift chapter, you learn the new baseline behaviors that signal power before you ever deploy techniques. You stop answering fast. Speed is submissive. It screams, "I'm here to please." You stop filling silence. Silence is pressure. Pressure makes other people talk. You stop over-explaining. Explanations are admissions. Admissions become leverage. You stop volunteering weakness. The world doesn't protect weakness, it prices it. You start controlling frames. You decide what is being discussed, when and why. This isn't about becoming cold for entertainment. It's about survival. Because there are two kinds of men in a conversation. The man being read, the man doing the reading, and you already know which one you've been. If you've ever walked away thinking, "Why did I say that?" That wasn't a slip. That was a system. You were guided into disclosure by pressure you didn't recognize. That ends here. This video installs one law that changes everything going forward. The person who speaks least and listens best controls the room. Not by being mysterious, by being unexploitable. Now that your lens is corrected, we can dissect the engine that makes people talk even when they promised themselves they wouldn't. People don't talk because you asked well. They talk because you controlled discomfort. That's the mechanism, not charm, not vibes, not intelligence. Humans confess to end inner tension, like coughing to clear smoke from the lungs. Your job, if you're ruthless, is to understand what creates that smoke. There are 4 pressure sources that force speech: uncertainty, silence, reciprocity, debt, ego, hunger. When you trigger any of these, the mouth opens. When you stack them, the mouth opens and keeps opening. Uncertainty. The brain hates open loops. The human mind can tolerate pain longer than it can tolerate ambiguity. That's why unfinished stories stick. That's why a vague threat keeps someone awake. Uncertainty creates an open loop in their head. Open loops demand closure. Closure is often delivered through explanation. So when someone doesn't know what you mean, where you stand, or what you believe, the brain pushes them to fill the gap. They start offering context, justification, backstory, anything to collapse uncertainty into certainty. Most men sabotage this by over-explaining. They close the loop for the other person. They give away their position for free. A strategist lets the other man pay the price of closure. Silence, the oldest interrogation tool on earth. Silence is not absence. Silence is pressure. In nature, silence signals danger. In human groups, silence signals judgment. People fear silence because it feels like evaluation without feedback. When you stop filling space, the other person's nervous system starts working. They begin narrating. They begin defending. They begin volunteering. Why? Because speech is a release valve. Talking lowers internal tension the same way pacing lowers anxiety. They speak to regain control of the moment. And if you're the one holding the silence, you become the one holding control. This is why the man who rushes to respond looks weak. He's trying to escape tension, not manage it. Reciprocity, the debt that makes people confess. Humans are wired to balance exchanges. If they receive something, attention, validation, a small concession, they feel an invisible bill. That bill can be paid with many currencies: favors, loyalty, information. This is how disclosure happens in the wild. Someone gives a tiny piece, the other person feels compelled to match it, and the exchange escalates until one side has revealed far more than intended. This is also why being nice is not moral, it's tactical. Niceness can be a hook. A soft landing invites heavier unloading. If you don't understand reciprocity, you'll keep getting robbed by polite thieves. Ego, hunger, the need to be seen as smart, good, strong. Ego is a leak. People talk to maintain identity. I'm competent. I'm loyal. I'm the victim. I'm the alpha. I'm the reasonable one. If you threaten their identity, even subtly, they rush to protect it with words. They start explaining motives, proving innocence, displaying knowledge, broadcasting moral superiority. This is why identity attacks work. They trigger defensive narration. They provoke self-justification. And self-justification spills details. Not because you forced it, because their ego demanded a rebuttal. Here's the cycle in its simplest form. You introduce pressure, uncertainty, silence, identity tension, social debt. They speak to release it. Their speaking creates more material, more angles, more claims, more contradictions. You hold the frame, keep pressure alive, and they keep talking. The amateur thinks extraction is about questions. The Machiavellian knows it's about state control, your state and theirs. If you're reactive, they clamp up. If you're needy, they posture. If you're angry, they defend. If you're calm, they unravel, because calm communicates superiority. I'm not threatened by what you say. That makes them talk harder to regain footing. This chapter installs one brutal principle: people don't confess to you. They confess to escape what you made them feel. Next, you'll see the behavioral patterns, the talk triggers, that reliably activate this loop across different personalities without you looking like an interrogator. Most men fail because they treat people as one species. They're not. Different personalities leak different kinds of information, under different pressures, for different payoffs. If you don't read the type in front of you, you ask the wrong questions, push at the wrong time, and end up talking just to fill the silence like a subordinate. So here are the archetypes. Not to manipulate, but to predict disclosure, control the topic, and keep your sovereignty intact. The ego vendor. This one sells stories to buy status. They volunteer details when they sense admiration, attention, or an audience. They don't disclose for intimacy. They disclose for ranking. Give them a stage and they'll talk. Remove the stage and they'll sulk. How to handle it, don't compete. Don't one-up. Let them perform while you stay minimal. You're not bonding, you're observing what they need in order to feel superior. What they reveal voluntarily. Achievements, connections, grievances, and the names of people they envy. The approval seeker. This one confesses to be accepted. They over-explain because they fear being misread. They fill silence because silence feels like rejection. They will donate private information just to keep the interaction warm. How to handle it. Keep your tone neutral and your validation scarce. Too much warmth turns you into their emotional landlord. You'll get flooded with unnecessary personal detail and then blamed for knowing it. What they reveal voluntarily, insecurities, relationship failures, anxieties, and whatever they think makes them good. The competence addict. This one talks to prove mastery. They disclose when you ask for process, not opinions. How did you decide that? What would you do differently? That isn't manipulation. It's a legitimate request for expertise. They can't resist demonstrating competence. How to handle it, don't challenge their intelligence directly. Use precision. Let them teach. You extract clarity while giving nothing personal. What they reveal voluntarily. Methods, assumptions, blind spots, and what they secretly fear being wrong about. The moral judge. This one leaks through righteousness. They confess their values constantly because values are their weapon. They don't want to be understood, they want to be right. They will reveal personal history if it supports their moral position. How to handle it, never fight their morality head-on. You don't win against a judge, you win by refusing the courtroom. Ask for definitions. What do you mean by that? That forces them into specifics and away from sermons. What they reveal voluntarily. Biases, vendettas, and the rules they use to justify power over others. The strategist. This one is careful, minimal, defensive. They don't disclose because they understand information is leverage. If you push, they close. If you posture, they counter-posture. They respect structure. How to handle it, be clean and direct. State your intent. Ask only what you need. Strategists disclose when they see mutual benefit and low risk, not when you try to trick them. What they reveal voluntarily. Objectives, constraints, and negotiated truths, never raw emotion. The wounded narrator. This one talks because pain needs a container. They disclose when they sense safety, but safety doesn't mean softness. It means consistency. Act like a rescuer and they'll attach. Act like a judge and they'll perform. Act like a wall and they'll stop. How to handle it, don't offer solutions. Don't offer pity. Ask for timelines and facts. Keep it grounded. You're not their therapist. You're filtering signal from noise. What they reveal voluntarily, triggers, patterns, and who hurt them, useful for understanding risk, not for exploitation. Now the sovereign rule that makes this chapter matter. Your power is not in making them talk. It's in not needing to. Every archetype above will disclose on their own when the frame rewards their identity. Your job is to hold a frame that lets you learn, without paying with your own exposure. That means short answers, no autobiographies, no. Here's what happened to me. Trades, no defending yourself against bait, no talking to relieve tension. You don't extract by deception. You extract through patience, structure, and silence discipline, and by refusing to be the one who needs approval. Men don't get exploited because they're stupid. They get exploited because they still believe social life is a place where truth is rewarded. It isn't. Social life is a market. Information is currency. And most men hand it out like free samples, then act shocked when someone uses it to bargain them down. Here's why humans overshare, even when they promised themselves they wouldn't. Tribal instinct. The need to belong makes you leak. Your brain is built for tribes, not boardrooms. In a tribe, disclosure signals trust. It says, I'm with you. That was survival. The modern world hijacks that wiring. You hear a friendly tone, you feel the old instinct wake up, and suddenly you're telling stories you didn't plan to tell. The problem is the tribe is gone. What's left are factions, and factions don't protect you. They trade you. So every time you overshare to connect, You're often just donating ammunition to a group that will pivot the second it benefits them. Status anxiety. You talk to defend your rank. Most disclosure is not intimacy, it's status defense. Men talk too much when they feel judged, compared, or uncertain of their position. They start performing competence, morality, or toughness. They explain. They justify. They prove. That proving is a leak. Because the moment you're proving, you've accepted someone else's frame. I am on trial. And trials create confessions. Not in court, inside your own mouth. A calm man doesn't prove. He observes. He lets other people try to establish rank and shows nothing until it's strategically useful. The good guy trap. Morality as a control collar. This is the ugliest one. You've been trained that withholding information is dishonest, guarded, immature, or manipulative. That training benefits one group, people who profit from your transparency. A Machiavellian truth. Morality is often deployed as a tool of extraction. Just be honest. Why won't you open up? If you have nothing to hide, that language is not about trust, it's about control. It tries to make your boundaries look like guilt. Sovereign men don't apologize for discretion. They treat discretion as hygiene. You don't owe strangers your bloodstream. Reciprocity delusion. If I share, they'll share. Men believe disclosure creates balance. Sometimes it does, among equals with aligned interests. But in mixed environments, workplaces, social circles, dating markets, reciprocity is often fake. People will take your story, nod warmly, and then store it. Later, when they need leverage, they remember it at the perfect time. Your mistake is assuming every exchange is fair. Predators love fair men. Fair men are predictable. The court effect. Audiences create confessions. The most damaging disclosures happen in front of witnesses. A room changes the game. In groups, humans don't speak to communicate, they speak to position themselves. That's why jokes get sharper, challenges get subtle, and personal details become trophies. One slip becomes a label. One weakness becomes a running joke. One admission becomes a social handle others can grab. That's why powerful men are boring in public. Not because they lack personality, because they understand courts. Courts don't deserve your interior life. History doesn't lie. Confession has always been a weapon. Look at any power system across history: empires, churches, intelligence networks, authoritarian regimes. The goal was never truth. The goal was compliance. Confession creates vulnerability. Vulnerability creates control. Modern life doesn't need torture chambers to get confessions. It uses politeness, group pressure, moral language, social bonding, rituals, the fear of looking cold, same outcome. Cleaner methods. So here's the psychological implant of this chapter. The world rewards the man who controls information, not the man who expresses himself. Your speech should be a controlled burn, not a wildfire. You don't need to lie. You need to price access to you, your time, your attention, your history, your plans. Not everyone is entitled to your inner file cabinet. Because once a detail leaves your mouth, it stops being yours. It becomes a tool in someone else's hand, today, tomorrow, or when the winds change. You don't need tricks. You need structure. The amateur tries to get people talking like a pickpocket, cute moves, covert hooks, social sleight of hand. That's how you get exposed, labeled manipulative, and permanently distrusted. A Machiavellian operator doesn't play cute. He uses legitimate frames that make disclosure voluntary, while he keeps his own interior locked down. The rule is simple: you don't extract by deception. You extract by controlling the frame, the pace, and the scope openly. Here's the toolkit, not for making them confess without realizing it, for running conversations like negotiations. Clean, asymmetrical, and defensible, the frame declaration. Most men start with questions. Weak. You start with a frame, short, firm, non-emotional. I'm deciding whether this makes sense. I need clarity on a few points. I'm trying to understand the situation before I commit. Walk me through what happened start to finish. A declared frame does two things. It makes your intent legitimate so you don't look like a snake. It puts the other person in explanation mode, not performance mode. You become the evaluator. That's rank. The narrow gate question. Avoid wide, emotional questions that invite speeches and manipulation. Use gates questions that force specificity. What exactly did you mean by that? Which part is your responsibility? What's the timeline? What changed and when? Specificity is a weapon because it kills fog. Fog is where liars live. And here's the power. You don't have to accuse. You just keep narrowing the gate until reality has nowhere to hide. The tactical summary. People spin stories, you compress them. After they talk, you summarize in cold terms. So you made X decision, it caused Y outcome, and now you want Z. You're saying the issue is A, but the behavior was B. This does three things. It tests truth. They'll correct you if it's wrong. It exposes contradictions without drama. It signals you're not emotionally inside their story, you're above it. That psychological position makes people either clarify or reveal defensiveness. Both are useful. The pause discipline. Silence isn't a trick, it's a filter. When you ask a narrow question, stop. Don't rescue them, don't soften it. Don't add 5 more sentences to be nice. Hold the pause like a blade hovering over skin. Men talk too much because they fear tension. You don't fear it. You use it to see who can handle pressure without collapsing into excuses. Silence doesn't force disclosure. It forces choice. Answer plainly or reveal avoidance. The one-way disclosure rule. Never trade your private information for theirs like it's a fair market. It isn't. Your disclosures should be minimal, operational, non-personal, reversible. You can say, I don't share details about that. That's private. Not relevant. No apology. No explanation. This is the Machiavellian backbone. You collect signal without donating leverage. The boundary check. When someone tries to flip the conversation onto you, classic deflection, you cut it off. We'll get to me later. Answer the question. That's a different topic. Stay on this. Not rude, not loud, just immovable. Deflection is a dominance attempt. If you follow it, you've surrendered control of the frame. The exit switch. The strongest move isn't the perfect question. It's ending the exchange the moment it becomes unproductive. We're done here. Not continuing this. We'll revisit when you're ready to be specific. Exit is power because it proves you don't need their cooperation to keep your dignity. Neediness is the enemy. This chapter installs a strategic shift. Stop trying to be interesting. Start being unexploitable. You control the frame. You narrow the gate. You summarize coldly. You hold silence. You disclose almost nothing. You cut deflections. You exit when necessary. That's not social skills. That's command. You don't lose power because you lack charisma. You lose because you keep trying to be cleared, liked, and understood, 3 addictions that turn a man into a talking faucet. The explainer identity is the most common weakness in modern men. Polite, transparent, eager to prove you're not the villain. That identity is not good. It's exploitable. So this chapter is the execution, not self-improvement. Identity death. Because as long as you reflexively explain, justify, and narrate your intentions, you will always be the easier target in any room where status matters. The explainer believes, if I clarify, they'll respect me. If I give context, they'll be fair. If I'm honest, they'll be honest. If I show my heart, they'll protect it. That is civilian logic. Courts don't reward civilians. Courts reward strategists. In reality, explanation is not innocence. It's submission to a frame someone else set. The moment you explain, you accept the premise that you owe them clarity, that they have authority to audit you. You don't. A Machiavellian lens. Your inner life is classified. Not because you're hiding crimes, because you're protecting leverage. Interrogator doesn't mean cop. It means a man who treats conversation as selection and intelligence gathering, not as emotional dumping. The interrogator's doctrine is simple. I decide what is relevant. I decide what is earned. I decide what gets access. He doesn't volunteer. He doesn't overanswer. He doesn't race to fill silence. He's not rude. He's unbuyable. And that's why he wins. The 3 surgical cuts. Kill the reflex to defend. Most men talk too much because they're defending an identity, competent, moral, loyal, good guy. So when someone implies anything else, you rush to correct the record. That rush is the leash tightening. New rule, you don't defend your character in real time. You let time and behavior be the defense. If someone baits you, why are you so secretive? You don't deliver a biography. You deliver a boundary. I don't share that. Not relevant. We're not discussing me, short, cold, done, kill the need to be interesting. The explainer performs, he tells stories, he adds details, he decorates truth to keep attention. That's how men become predictable. They build a persona and then feel obligated to maintain it. The interrogator is boring on purpose, not dull, controlled. He speaks in clean lines, not paragraphs. He leaves gaps. He doesn't compete for airtime. He lets others expose themselves through the need to be seen. Because the man who needs to be interesting is always one compliment away from giving away the vault. Kill the fair exchange myth. You were taught conversation is a balanced trade. You share, they share. That's a child's contract. Adults don't trade evenly, they trade advantageously. The interrogator doesn't swap secrets. He exchanges only what is necessary for the current mission: work, logistics, decisions, boundaries. He doesn't confess to create intimacy. He selects for it. If someone demands reciprocity, I told you mine, now tell me yours. You don't comply, you mark the attempt. That's not how I operate. You shared because you wanted to. I'm not paying with my privacy. That line alone filters the room. Parasites hate it. Opportunists test it. Serious people respect it. Now install the behaviors that make the identity real. Delayed response. You don't answer instantly because instant answers are often emotional answers. Controlled ambiguity. You stay specific on facts, vague on motives, private on weaknesses. Topic control. You refuse side quests and deflections. You bring the exchange back to relevance. Exit authority. You end unproductive conversations without needing permission. This isn't confidence. This is sovereignty. Because a man who can end a conversation can't be cornered. A man who doesn't explain can't be easily framed. A man who speaks less can't be harvested. That's the identity replacement, from explainer to interrogator. Not louder, not meaner. Just harder to read, harder to manipulate, and impossible to shame into disclosure. You wanted dark psychology. Here it is. The moment you try to look clever, you advertise weakness. Men who chase techniques radiate hunger, hunger to control, hunger to win, hunger to extract. And hunger is visible. Visible hunger makes you predictable. Predictable men become targets for better predators. So understand the final rule: information control is power until you get caught playing games. Then it becomes evidence. Most men don't lose because they asked a question. They lose because their behavior screams manipulation to anyone with real social intelligence. And once that label attaches to you, your access collapses. Your reputation becomes radioactive. People stop trusting you, stop volunteering, and start feeding you decoys. That's the price of sloppy power. Here are the 3 failure modes that turn you into the mark. The amateur interrogator. He tries to run techniques on everyone. He overuses silence like a gimmick. He stares too hard. He asks too many narrow questions too fast. He turns every conversation into a deposition. People feel it. They don't need to name it. They feel the pressure is artificial. Result, they clamp down, or worse, they counterframe you. Why are you grilling me? This feels weird. Are you trying to trap me? Once someone says that out loud, you're finished in that room. The court just decided you're not a peer, you're a schemer. The moral criminal. He believes manipulation is the point. He uses Machiavelli as permission to be dishonest, extractive, and careless. He lies, twists, misleads, then calls it strategy. That's not Machiavellian. That's low IQ criminality. Machiavelli wasn't preaching childish deception. He was describing power realities, how perception, incentives, fear, and interest shape behavior. The goal is to govern outcomes, not to act like a con artist. When you cross into deception, you create enemies. Enemies retaliate with stories. Stories outlive you. The Confessor Hunter. This one is the most pathetic. He collects people's vulnerabilities like trophies. He stores them. Then he uses them when the winds shift, during conflict, breakup, office politics. That buys a short win and a long death. Because once you weaponize someone's private disclosure, word spreads quietly. Social networks are not large, they're dense. Your name becomes a warning label. Don't talk around him. Then you lose the only real advantage you were chasing: access to truth. The true Machiavellian doesn't need to betray confidences. He wins by being the safest vault in a dangerous court, because vaults attract valuable deposits. Here's what nobody tells you. Once you start thinking in frames, you will meet people who think in frames too, and some of them are better than you. They will feed you impressive stories that are strategically incomplete, bait you into revealing your position while they reveal nothing, mirror your pauses, then reverse the pressure onto you, label you weird in front of others to break your authority, turn your own structure into a social joke. This is why your real defense isn't technique, it's identity. If you need outcomes too badly, you're controllable. If you need to be seen as smart, you're baitable. If you need to win every exchange, you're trainable. Power requires calm. Calm requires that you're not starving. The sovereign rule said if you're going to operate at this level, adopt these laws. Never fish in low-trust environments. Courts punish extraction. Never ask questions you can't justify openly. Legitimacy protects you. Never collect what you wouldn't want collected from you. Symmetry is strategic. Never reveal motive. Reveal intent. I need clarity beats I'm testing you. Never use private disclosures as weapons. That's how you get exiled. These rules aren't morality. They're survival math. Because the fastest way to lose status is to be seen as a man who needs control. The strongest posture is simple, selective attention. You listen more than you speak, you ask only what's relevant, and you exit when the frame turns hostile. If you're serious, stop collecting lines and start training discipline. 1 week, answer in fewer words. 1 month, stop explaining yourself to people who haven't earned access. 1 year, become the man who doesn't need to be believed, because his life is governed, not argued. Write 1 word in the comments: vault, not for motivation, as a reminder. Your mouth is the door to your kingdom. Keep it shut unless the price is right.